Hello, everyone, and hello, world. It is so beautiful to have you with us here today with one of my beloved friends for so many years. David now is the way that I knew him, and it's just incredible. Swami Beyondananda, Brahmananda.
Brahmananda.
We were just talking about beyond
The other Ananda.
Brahmananda. And what a joy it is to be together again. Just so beautiful for my heart. I am thrilled that David and I are doing this call. And let's begin with an invocation. And I'm going to use the invocation that was written and modified a little bit, perhaps. I always seem to do that, by Charles Fillmore. I am now in the presence of pure being, immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. I acknowledge your presence and the power, O blessed Spirit. Now erase my mortal limitations, and from thy pure substance of love, bring into manifestation my world according to your perfect law. And so we simply say again, come, Holy Spirit, come upon us, move in us and through us and as us. Let the words that we speak be spoken through us by you, beloved Spirit. And so it is. Amen and amen. What a joy. What a joy. And I think these calls are unlike any that I've seen anyone on the web doing. We're going to talk about the 4 stages of life. I thought I was making it up when I separated them into 25-year cycles. Found out when I was doing some research on the ashramas that someone in India, a group, has already done that. And so it's a small world how we know that we know, and we know that we, or think we don't know, and we know that we know anyway. And so the first 25 years of your life, David, I didn't know you, but I do know that you were the eldest of a family, a very Catholic family. Of 13 children, and you were the oldest. So I do know that. And I'm going to let you take it from there. Tell us about where you were born, the year, perhaps, even the month, where you went to school, and the imprints and the influences that you had,
Mm,
including surprises that changed your life.
mm. So born in 1950 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the oldest of 13 children, 2 brothers, 10 sisters. You can imagine, very Catholic family. I went to Catholic schools for 12 years. First 8 years with Mercy nuns. I was an altar boy, had thoughts of becoming a priest, loved sports, baseball, football, basketball. These were my passions. Went to Catholic high school. It turns out I went to a Franciscan high school, which was a deep imprint because later I actually went and lived in Assisi, Italy, and taught about the life of Saint Francis. So very Catholic, I would say conservative, traditional background, very traditional values. Uh, my proudest accomplishment in the first quarter of my life was winning the Scholar Athlete Award at my school. When freshman year, I went and there was an award ceremony where someone was presented with the award for being the best scholar and the best athlete. I made a decision at that point. That's what I wanted to win that award. Along with that came a scholarship to Columbia University. So at the age of 18, I left my really traditional conservative Pittsburgh background and went to New York City in 1968, right during the hubbub. Columbia was sort of the center of the revolution of the 60s, and my whole worldview, I had to look at it, began to examine my life, my relationship with the Catholic Church, my belief in America, right or wrong, my belief in the justice of the Vietnam War, and all of those things came into the question. And I had a really shattering moment because there I was at Columbia, surrounded by radicals and being fundamentally conservative, and playing football freshman year. During one of the games, I got hit in the chest and cracked my sternum and broke a few ribs. And they took me to the hospital after the game in Morningside Heights. And it was the first time I'd ever really seen the other side of the world because Morningside Heights was a hospital. St. Luke's shared a hospital with Harlem. And I remember being in the emergency room waiting to be seen. And I sat there for 12 hours, Marj, waiting to be seen because there were others that needed attention more desperately than I did. There was a young man that came in with a knife in his back and died in the waiting room. I remember a woman calling for help. Her husband was having a heart attack in one of the rooms. And all these things were happening around me. And it completely blew my mind that I'd heard so much about the oppression of the poor and the blacks. And it shattered my worldview in an instant. It was much like Buddha seeing, old age and death and sickness for the first time. And that sent me on a journey of about a week where I didn't go back to school, didn't go back to football. I went to the Bowery and Times Square and hung out with the drunks and the drug addicts and the prostitutes and just wandered aimlessly. And when I came back, I wasn't the same person. My eyes could no longer see the world as I previously did. And it was at that time that I decided to really seek the truth. I took a leave of absence from Columbia and decided to travel the world. It just so happened that the week that I took my leave was the week that the first lottery for Vietnam was taken, and I was going to go. So I quickly decided to get back into school and decided to go to school abroad, where I spent the next 2 years studying and living in France and Beirut, Lebanon, which was really an eye-opening experience, seeing the life of the Palestinians and actually teaching English in a Palestinian camp. Part of my senior year was spent in Japan. And when I came back, I was a meditator. During my travels, I learned how to meditate, studied transcendental meditation, with the Maharishi practice TM. But I wanted more. I wanted more. And I began reading everything I could find. By the way, I visited 75 countries during those 2 years. I spent time in the Zen monastery, studied with a Sufi master in Beirut, Lebanon. But I was still seeking. I hadn't found what I was looking for. And the pivotal moment at that time was my dear friend, Rudrani Farman, who was my yoga teacher, told me that Swami Muktananda was going to be coming to the United States and that he had this capacity to awaken the Kundalini energy. I'd read about the Kundalini, but I had no experiences of it. and that she and a group of other disciples were making a pilgrimage from New York City to Oakland, California to meet Muktananda. They had 9 cars, you can imagine, a 45 people caravan. We traveled, took us, I think, almost a week to go cross country. And the day that we arrived, Muktananda suffered a heart attack and was in the hospital in San Francisco. So I was heartbroken that I wasn't going to be able to meet him. But the next morning, he sent a message that he was going to receive uh, the group that had come from New York to meet him and give us a private darshan. So needless to say, I was really excited about this opportunity to meet him. And I remember preparing myself for it. You know, I heard he could read people's minds. So I had an extra long meditation that morning. I didn't really want him reading what I was thinking in those days. And then I knew that gurus sometimes ask test questions. You know, Zen koan, like what was your face like before your mother was born, or what's the sound of one hand clapping, something like that. So I had a couple of cups of coffee to make my mind really, really alert in case he asked me a test question. Then I put on my spiritual clothes. I had a denim jacket with all the signs of the zodiac and a big Om patch on my rear end. And of course, I had a full beard and long hair at the time. So with this full package of expectations, I went to meet Muktananda. It was my turn. I bowed to him. He looked at me and he said, "What's your name?" And I couldn't remember. My mind was absolutely blank. I had no idea what my name was. He swatted me with his peacock feathers. He said, "This wand of feathers, I see you have some in your background there." Swatted me with the peacock feathers, and I was like, my mind was completely still. And he said, "Well, where are you from?" Again, I had no idea where I was from, but I remembered my name. I said very proudly, "I'm David now." And he said, "Very good." And he swatted me. But then I remembered, but I couldn't remember where I was from. So he then said, "What kind of work do you do?" Again, no idea, but I remembered where I was from. So I was like 2 beats behind. So I said, "Baba, I'm from New York." And I remembered, I'm not from New York. I'm from Pittsburgh. So he swatted me with the feathers. He said, "Go over here and sit." And I did. I sat while he greeted the other people. And I went into the deepest meditation I'd ever had. And at a certain point, he glanced over at me, and there was a bolt of light that went from his eyes into my heart. And there was just an explosion of love, of ecstasy, something I'd never felt before. I was in love with everyone and everything. The light, the room was filled with light, and I lived with him from that moment on. That was really the turning point in my life. I never went back to New York, never cleaned up my apartment, never gathered any of my possessions. I just lived with him until the day he died. And interesting enough, that was at the age of 25. So that was the first quarter of my life, which I would think about, in I don't remember, Michael Beckwith used to teach us about to me, by me, through me, as me. And so this sort of stage of life was the to me. Things just happened to me and I reacted to them. And that initiated the next 25 years, which was by me, learning to exercise my spiritual capacities and the inner light within to manifest things. So that's roughly the first quarter, first 25 years.
Well, there was a little bit of overlap because it's very, very fascinating that when you were um, in that time, you went to live in India. Uh, you lived at Ganashpuri.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard you tell so many stories about that time.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to tell us a little bit more about the time, including the world tour that you were an MC for,
Okay.
including when Baba invited you to uh, be the director of the American Buddha City Yoga Centers, and you were part of founding the one in Los Angeles?
Yes, would love to. So I moved in with Baba, and I would say the first 2 years that I was there, I just simply lived in bliss. I was getting up at 4 o'clock every morning and meditating, chanting, doing yoga on a daily basis, taking the various courses in Kashmir Shaivism and Vedanta and Bhakti Yoga and Patanjali's Yoga, taking all the various courses, and my life was really a dream. I did whatever work they asked me to do, cleaning dishes, sweeping floors, cleaning the toilets, doing whatever seva I needed to do. And one morning, Baba came in and said, I want you to work in the kitchen now.
And define seva.
Seva is selfless service. So when you live in an ashram, you're required to do some work, to keep the ashram going, and also to serve, to learn to serve others. Save another name for seva would be karma yoga, and it's a complete yoga. Many of the people in the ashram only worked, only did service. So, for example, the women that worked in the kitchen, and there were a few men worked in the kitchen. They worked full time from 3:30 in the morning till maybe 8 at night. Didn't meditate, didn't chant, didn't go to courses. Many of the men on the construction crew were building the ashrams, building the residences. So, karma yoga is learning how to realize the inner self, the divinity within, by performing selfless service. So Baba was now asking me to give up my meditation, to give up my study of the scriptures, which I was addicted to and loved completely, and devote my life to selfless service, particularly in chopping vegetables. He wanted me to work in the kitchen and just chop vegetables. And I have to tell you, I was a little resistant to doing that. I really liked meditation, I really liked taking the courses. So I was sort of half-heartedly chopping vegetables. And this went on for a few months. And finally, one day, Baba came in. I remember we were chopping cucumbers. And I had a piece of cucumber, maybe this big, left over. And he took the knife out of my hand and he chopped the cucumber so quickly. I'd never seen anybody move that fast. And every piece was exactly the same size and the same shape. And when he was done, he looked at me and said, there's 30 pieces there now. Count them. So I counted them, but there was only 27. So I was in a pickle. What do? Do I tell him the truth? There are a bunch of people there and blow his cover, but I decided to tell the truth. I said, Baba, there's only 27 pieces there. And he laughed. He said, turn the knife over. Flip the knife over, 3 pieces. So there were exactly 30 pieces, as he had said. And he said, that's meditation. I want you to learn to meditate like that. And so I did. So the next 6, 8 months, all I did was chop vegetables, and try to be as one pointed as I could, because that's actually the definition of meditation. Meditation is a one pointed flow of concentration towards anything, riding a bike, doing a hobby, doing your work. But he was training me the art of one pointed meditation. So I did that the next maybe 6, 8 months, chopping vegetables, and by this time I'd become pretty good at it. I had a whole team of people peeling bananas for me one day so that I could chop them. And as I was chopping the bananas, suddenly time slowed down. It was as if I could see the space between each movement. It was like those old samurai movies where you see the object coming at you and you can move. Everything slowed down. I was filled with light, filled with joy. Literally, the room was filled with light. It was very much like that first experience I had with Baba. And I was in samadhi while I was chopping cucumbers, excuse me, chopping bananas. And at that moment, there was a knock on the door, and it was Baba. And he said, your time is complete here. Tomorrow, I want you to start emceeing the programs. And so I did that. He took me from the kitchen to emceeing his programs where there were thousands of people presenting. And I was scared to death to do that kind of a work. But that was my relationship with Baba, is he always saw something, he saw more in me than I saw in myself. Constantly was pushing me to do things that I thought were beyond me. And we spoke at Carnegie Hall, the Palace of Fine Arts. We traveled the world, went around the world a couple of times, all over Europe and Australia, Asia. Um, and I traveled with him until, let's say, 1981, when we were in Los Angeles. And at this point, he had given me sannyas, which means I'd become a monk and renounced the world and given away all my possessions. And he told me he wanted me to stay in Los Angeles and open an ashram, the Siddha Foundation in LA. And so he gave me his peacock feathers and his sandals, the clothes he wore when he did intensives, and said, I want you to do this in my name. He said, never think that you're doing anything. You're simply doing your service. Do this in remembrance of me. It struck me as very much like the words of Jesus. Do this in memory of me. And so this has been my guiding light. I'd say for the last 45 years, I've been traveling and teaching, giving Shaktipat. Over the past year, I think I've probably been to maybe 7 or 8 different countries doing these 2-day intensives, which is about bestowing the grace of the Siddha lineage, transmitting Shaktipat, transmitting energy, awakening the Kundalini energy. And we did that at Unity of Tustin back in 1995. I remember very clearly the first time we met, Marj.
Yes, so let me begin to dialogue with you here, because this is when we met in 1995. I had
95
arrived
was
I had
Father's Day.
arrived at Unity of Tustin in 1993. So I had only been there for 2 years, and I loved it, but the church was still small. We had 2 services, but they were not full. And and it was a small sanctuary. And when you arrived, it was Father's Day.
Mhm.
And I did my Father's Day talk, and I didn't notice you in the audience. And uh, I always did the receiving line afterwards, and you did not go through the receiving line. You and Helen and the children were probably in Sunday school.
Mhm.
And and so after I had finished with the receiving line, and I was sort of gathering my things and walking over toward hospitality, which was across the campus. And I'm walking down the sidewalk, and a voice speaks behind me. It's an audible voice, and and it was responding to a question I had said out loud, but it was a question I was thinking. And the question was, who is that? Because I was looking at you across the campus, around the hospitality area, and your whole head was surrounded with light. And I thought, who is that? And the voice behind me said, this one is here to teach. And I spun around. I'll never forget that moment. I spun around to see who was speaking behind me, and no one was there.
Mhm.
So, with immense curiosity, I walked over to hospitality and walked up to you and introduced myself. And you introduced yourself as David Now. And as I do often, I and start with a conversation by simply saying, tell me more about yourself. What do you do? And you said, I teach yoga. And I looked directly into your eyes, gazed into your eyes, and I said, you are here to teach. repeating the words that I had heard from the voice without a name. And you looked at me, paused for a minute, and started backing away from me.
I remember.
And we had limited conversation after that because you totally withdrew, backed away. However, you called me during the week and made an appointment to come in and talk to me. And you came into my office. I'll never forget this. And as we began to talk, and I told you about the voice and what I had said, tears started streaming down your face, and you began weeping. And you told me about what had happened in your life between the moment of Baba's death and now. Do you want to fill us in on that?
Well, it was a very painful time between Baba's death and the time that I met you. There was a split in the lineage. Baba left two successors. They began to fight with each other, and we were forced to pick one or the other. And this was not Baba's will, and so I left, and it was the most difficult decision of my life, giving up my family, my friends. So I left the foundation and took the robes off and became a householder. Went back into the world and started working. And I hadn't taught for almost 12 years. And during that time, I did get married. And Helen.
Tell us about how you met Helen.
Well, about a year after my leaving the ashram, two of my students, Kristen Brown and Orson Moses, invited me to come back into the world. I was still living the life of a monk, even though I wasn't wearing the robes. So they invited me to come to the Playboy Mansion. It was Hugh Hefner's Midsummer Night's Dream Party, the big party of the year at the Playboy Mansion. But in order to go, I had to go with someone who knew Hef. And Orson's sister, was a close friend of Hef. So I went on a blind date. And when I went to pick her up, it was like the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. And like, I fell in love instantly. It took a little while to convince her, but we eventually 2 years later married and have two lovely boys. But the challenge for us was that we came from very different backgrounds. That I was raised Catholic and became really a Hindu monk, and she was raised in the Jewish tradition. Her father and mother were in the Holocaust. Father was actually in concentration camps in Romania. So we spent almost 10 years looking for a place that we could worship together. And we'd go one place and I would like it, but she wouldn't like it. Then we go someplace that she'd like, but I wouldn't like it. So when we were at your service, in the middle of the service, and your words moved me and my heart was open and I felt so much love. But my first thought was, Helen's not going to like this. If I like it, she's not going to like it, right? But I looked over at her and she was in tears. She was weeping. She'd been truly moved. So we found a place that we could call home and raise the kids, in that particular tradition. Helen's here, by the way. So at a certain point, maybe we'll pop her on and you could take a look and she can say hi. But yeah.
Ask her if she'd be willing to come on the camera for just a moment.
Would you be willing to come on for just a moment?
Yes.
Come behind me here. And so I'm here with Helen and my son. We're in Austin, Texas. This is Helen.
Namaskar.
This beautiful woman that you fell in love with instantly and still beautiful.
There's always a learning moment with David. It's auspicious that we're now back together after many years. I spent in Key West doing some Sava, and some sadhana and selfless service and learning spirituality on my own. Now we've come together to share our points of view. And you know, the only point we have is love is everything.
And so two of the pictures that are in the set of photographs that were in the email, I want to just point out to you right now. And the first picture is of David and the two
Oh.
boys when they were very, very young. And then the next picture is of David and Dylan, that's where you are now at Dylan's home in Texas.
Mm.
So do you want to tell us just briefly any more about those years of raising the kids at Unity in Tustin?
They were a challenge. I'll tell you one. I was leading the Sunday service, giving the talk. I should set it up first. On the way to the Sunday service, we had a rental car because my car was being fixed, and the two boys, Dylan and Derek, found that if they got into the back seat, there was a little armrest there. That if you moved the armrest away, you could crawl into the trunk of the car. And so I'm driving to Unity of Tustin, and I stop the car and get out, and there's nobody in the back seat. So I know that they're in the trunk. And so I picked them up and I said, don't do that. You could get hurt. You could suffocate. You could die. Don't ever do that again. Right. So I took them into the kids program there. And it was raining that day. And so I'm giving the talk when I see Dylan squealing, running. I could see through the windows that he was going. So when my talk is done, I went to the car and I could see the muddy little footprints, went into the car and into the trunk again, right? So I open the trunk up and I pull him up and I say, Dylan, please don't ever do this. You could suffocate from this. It turns out that there was somebody arriving at church just at that moment. And she thought I drove them, him to the program in the trunk. So she went into the kids program and asked them. And she said, does your dad put you in the trunk? And he was only 4 years old. So his English, he just learned to speak. He says, only when I'm bad. He said, but don't worry. I won't suffocate. I'm brave. I can take it. So she reported me to children's service. And they went to his school and did the whole examination. And I only found out about this when they came and knocked on the door and said, you're clear. We checked on this supposed abuse and so went my years raising the kids. They were both a challenge, but they've turned out well. So I'm here in Dylan's home, and he's got a beautiful.
Now you're there with
Dylan and all of his cats. He's breeding cats these days. We had two litters this week. He has 4 kind of rare cats. He breeds rare. What are they called? Siberian
forest cats.
Siberian forest cats. We had 2 litters, so we have 12 kittens in the house this week. Just this week.
What I remember about Dylan is the years that he went to Santa Barbara and how supportive you were of that. You would loan him your car, and because he was going to school and didn't have a lot of money, he would often even sleep in the car. He graduated from the University of Santa Barbara, very prestigious school, and with a degree in computer science. And he's gone on to establish his career. So if he's in the room, have him say hello.
Yeah. I can see some of you would know him, some that would know Dylan. I see some Barbara, Patty. Yeah. He wouldn't take money from me. He was independent. He said, I'm not going to take a penny from you, Dad. I went up with him, and got him a room in an apartment, and he wouldn't stay there. He slept in the car and wanted to put himself through school on his own. Got himself.
Anyway, I want to stay with you at Unity in Tustin
Mhm.
because the vision and mission statement at Unity of Tustin when you got there was healing lives, building dreams. Two phrases. And I knew that you were there to teach. And so I immediately invited you to begin to that journey in my Wednesday night class that was called Conscious Covenant.
Mhm.
And it was about making that covenant with God. And in that class, we began to do joint teaching. You would share, and then I would share. And we called it East Meets West.
Mhm.
And you would talk about Eastern teachings of spiritualization and all of the kinds of levels of it. And you told your cucumber stories many times and more. And I would talk about Unity's teachings. And this brings us into one of the people that we have both loved, and that's Phil Goldberg. And
Mhm.
there is a picture here of Phil Goldberg and you during this time at Unity of Tustin. And Phil Goldberg was the author of American Veda. And he talks about this time in his book. And on page, need to put on my glasses to read.
Mhm.
He talks about me and he talks about Unity of Tustin. And this has been a very, very sacred and significant thing for me that he wrote about this. He was describing the beginning of American Veda and the role that unity as a worldwide movement, beginning with Charles Fillmore, had in it. And Fillmore's essay contains a remarkable early expression of Vedantic pluralism. We are all of one God, and it matters not from what source we get our religion. If it has that spirit of love, which pervades the souls of all who find that place of peace, which passes understanding, the
Mhm.
peace that passes understanding. References to Indian philosophy virtually disappeared from Unity's publications. Dave DeLuca, an author, made to presumably to the church's message that was more palatable in the heartland. I'm experiencing some of that here in moving back to the heartland. It still exists. That would make the Fillmores forerunners of the many teachers who borrowed Vedic ideas only to downplay their role. Their message was very much about the Upanishads, but their language was not, observed Marj Britt, the senior minister at Unity of Tustin in Orange County, California. Instead of thou art that, it was something like, I am an expression of the divine presence. Despite the whitewashing, the Fillmores must have grown more familiar with the Vedantic teachings as they became more accessible. They seem to have attended Swami Vivekananda's celebrated appearance at the Parliament of World Religions in Chicago in 1893. And it's hard to imagine two more receptive minds. And so that became one of my amazing entry points into East Meets West. And you and I co-taught that class at Unity of Tustin most of the years for 17 years. You did take a slight detour, took a year or two or three off, and decided you needed to make a lot of money. And you got into real estate and bought homes and ended up establishing in the heart of Seva recovery homes for people who were in the process of recovering from addiction. And then all of that disappeared in your life, and you came back to Unity of Tustin, and we were already doing East Meets West, and it was imprinted in our hearts. But there was an earlier thing that happened before you did your exit and sort adventure into wealth. You began doing chanting on Friday nights in the Victoria House, which was a sacred space. We would fill that living room, fill it with people sitting on the floor, and there would be 70 or 80 people in the living room sitting on the floor, and you would lead the chants, and it was changing lives, absolutely changing lives. People were having experiences of being lifted off of the floor, even in their chanting ecstasy.
Mm.
And you chanted at Om Namah Shivaya. That was one of the favorite chants. But there was another one that was amazing for me, and that was Jai Jai Ram. And what you were unaware of was that when I was in ministerial school, I had taken a class on clown ministry, and we had to choose our clown name. And the teacher, Janet Manning, made several suggestions, one of which was spell your name backwards. And so Marj, spelled backwards, became J. J. Rom.
Beautiful.
And this is my name tag from when I was in ministerial school in Lee Summit, Missouri. J. Rum.
Oh, beautiful.
And this takes us to sort of the theme of this call, which is, what is your destiny path? And how does it show up in your life in ways you never expected it, in ways that it reveals itself without naming it specifically, and it's never been a goal for you. It's never been about ambition. It's never been anything about that. It's been about God realization. Although you may have never had the language to even understand that. And your coming to Unity of Tustin became part of its changing its whole identity. Our mission and vision included healing lives, building dreams, and you and I together founded what we call the God realization piece of it, that part of the ministry that went beyond human levels of ambition or awareness or anything related to goals or success.
Mm.
And interestingly, the time I went to Unity of Tustin, there were only 30 or 40 people there. I saw Andrea Nishihari is on this call. She actually picked palm branches out of her yard, much to her husband's dismay, because I told her in advance I wanted palm branches for my first Sunday in 1993 when I spoke at Unity of Tustin. It has lasting value. It sticks.
Mm.
And so we did Wednesday night, East Meets West, taught all of the levels of consciousness within the Vedic philosophy, 0 to 12. And we taught unity teachings, Christian mysticism, all of the levels. And this is what my book is about. My book is on the codes of co-creation. So it's really fascinating, this experience of the energy that moves up and down your spine, ascending and descending, but the descent is first and the ascent is after. And you taught us about the triggers. You taught us about the blocks and how things can get stuck. So, what an amazing, amazing time you and I had together there in those years. Um, and you brought a lot of swamis into the experience of Unity of Tustin. This shows one of you with actually Michael Ward, who was one of the people who attended everything, and it was just his life totally changed. A medical doctor and head of anesthesiology, not only for California, but all of the Southern California region. And now Michael spends half of his time in India and is on the board of directors of Mother Miracle School.
Mm.
And you know Michael.
I'll be staying with him next weekend.
Isn't that incredible?
Coming back to Unity of Tustin, going to do an intensive there the last weekend, I think it is in July, and I'll be staying with Michael at his home in Long Beach while I'm there. We see each other frequently when he comes to Rishikesh.
Isn't it incredible how all of this continues revealing itself, continues its play of consciousness, and continues all of the ways that spirit brings it together? And one of the things that I loved when we were there at Unity in Tustin is that we taught East meets West. And there is the beginning of the flyer on that I sent to you. But it's really interesting to me as I look at the words that are the description. The title of the workshop that we did together was Genesis, Revelation, and the Bhagavad Gita. And we co-taught East meets West for 17 years. And now we're coming back together one more time to teach together again. What if we could open into the vastness and experience cosmic awareness? Could the creation story of Genesis and Revelation be interrelated with the Bhagavad Gita, a 700 verse Hindu scripture? Are they different perspectives of the same cosmic story? Are they epics of initiation, transformation, and revelation? How, most important, how are they interrelated with your own life? How it works is relevant in both David's life and in Marj's own lives. How about yours? And that's a question for every single person on the call. And we have quite a large number of people on the call who have known you from Unity of Tustin. And you're going to be going back there to do a 2-day intensive very, very soon. How beautiful that is, how wonderful. But in that period of time, you also met some teachers, some that you met because of Unity of Tussin. And I'm remembering Byron Katie. And I went to a women's retreat in Northern California, and she was on the agenda and she spoke, and I immediately went up to her and said, "You must come to Unity of Tustin. You must." And she did. And it ended up, she was married at the time, Byron Katie Roll, and she ended up coming once a month. And we would take people to her retreat center there and this is not where she is now. She's in Ojai now, but it was in the early days of Byron Katie. And isn't it incredible how we become so connected with people? We know them because it's like we're connecting with people from past lives and waiting to meet with them again and again and again. And it's it's as if we've known each other forever, forever. And so you began to bring some of these swamis to Unity of Tussin, and in the picture that I held up, uh, you see not only yourself and Michael Ward, but you also see Swami
Shankar,
Sharkarananda.
Shankarananda. Yeah, he and I are still very close. We speak to each other at least once a week. We do intensives together. We do retreats together. He's
And
bringing
he's
a
in
group.
Australia still?
He's in Australia. He has an ashram in Mount Eliza, south of Melbourne. And he's kind of risen through the ranks of the sannyasis. He's what's called a Mahamandaleshwara now, which is the highest rank of Swami. He can actually give sannyas to, and he has to many young swamis in Australia. So it's like a
Some
bishop.
of the people from Unity of Tustin actually went and spent a year with him there.
Mhm.
And so, and another person,
Sally Kempton.
Sally Kempton,
Yeah.
and came and was there for a long time. And her book, Awakening Shakti, was when she got the rights to publish her meditation book. Finally, they were released by Siddha Yoga, and she could publish it under her own name.
Yeah.
And of course, she has now passed through the veils. And so another one, Sri Sri Ravi Shankar.
We did one of his first programs in the West. I remember we did it on the lawn. Do you remember the
Yes, I do.
Yeah, yeah. He's become big now. Some of his programs have 1 million people. I mean, he's huge.
And one of his disciples um, is doing something with Humanities Team online. And so it's fascinating because Garth is affiliated with Humanities Team.
Ah, okay.
They have a mailing list of over 1.5 million people. So it's incredible. And of course, Amaji, do you want to mention something about her?
Okay, well, uh, I was there was a group of people who had left City Yoga that hosted her first visit to the United States. There were 7 of us there at the program. Now you have to wait like 14, 15 hours to see her, but we knew her right from the beginning. Yeah.
So,
I see my friend John Welshins is online.
yes.
We also, I think, spent time at Unity here and also up in Portland, Oregon. We had you as a guest up there. Good to see you, John. Namaste.
Just fabulous. And we'll be going into the time of sharing, and so that will happen soon. But one of the things that I do want to mention is at your last birthday in March, and your birthday was actually just 2 days before Paul, my former husband, who's now passed through the veils. His birthday was March 4th, and it's like he always said, this is about marching forth. It's about going forth into the all that is. And that was what we taught, the all that is. And what a gift it was that day that voice behind me said, this one is here to teach.
Mm.
What a gift it was when you came into my office, and tears streamed down your face as you poured out the heartbreak of what had happened with Siddha Yoga after Muktananda's death, and just heartbreak and the experiences of living without your robes. And I said to you, you, David, which the name David means beloved in the Jewish lineage, you are still a monk. And so tell us a little bit before we go to the sharing time about your journey in Assisi with Bruce and Ruth. You met them as a retreat at and got really acquainted with them, and retreat that we were having, one of our 5-day meditation retreats. Paul and I did those for 15 years at Unity in Tustin. And you met Bruce and Ruth, and they ended up inviting you to become part of the Assisi experience, which is now listed as one in many, many places as one of the best retreat centers for silent meditation in the world. Tell us about Bruce and Ruth and Assisi. And the picture that I put in the email was one of you sitting next to a statue. And tell us about the statue.
Well, that's actually a statue of Saint Francis of Assisi, and it's seated on a hill overlooking the valley, and just thought that that's where Francis liked to meditate. So I thought I would just sit with him and take a picture. Bruce and Ruth invited me to come take care of their retreat center while it was for sale. So they used to have a beautiful retreat farm out in the country, just a couple of kilometers from Assisi, and we would meditate there and have our silent retreats and go into Assisi and see the holy places. It took almost 2 years to sell, so I stayed there for 2 years leading retreats and fell in love with Assisi. So when the retreat center sold, I asked Bruce and Ruth if they would be willing to keep the retreat center open, but find a place in town. So we found a hotel, built ourselves a little meditation hall and temple, and have continued to do it for the last 10 years. I will be going back there this summer, August through October. I'll be leading a week-long retreats in Assisi, where we meditate each morning together for an hour, and then go to the places made holy by Francis and Claire. He says she's not as well known as Francis, but equally as powerful, and do spiritual practices on site, then come back and meditate in the evening together. So coming to Assisi was a great healing for me. You know, I left the Catholic Church when I was 18, and I have to admit that I left with some judgment and some resentments about what I'd been taught. Being in Assisi, leading these retreats, based on the life of St. Francis, I've been able to re-examine my beliefs and my views, and I found that everything that I teach in yoga and meditation from the East, I can find in the teachings of Francis. And so it's just a tremendous kind of reconciliation to the point where I can actually go to Assisi and go to Mass and attend the various services in perfect integrity and see the unity of the teachings of East and West. So much of my insights on the East and West, you know, happened during our time together teaching at Unity of Tustin. In fact, I remember so clearly when we would teach the 12 powers specifically, we would go through and find direct quotes from the Bhagavad Gita and from the Vedas, but they were unattributed. And largely I found out that it was because they had people, stenographers, taking notes, and I'm sure when he would say the Bhagavad Gita says, they couldn't catch that, but they would catch the quote and put it in the book, but direct quotes, you know. And I understand that they found in Fillmore's library the complete works of Vivekananda later. So aside from meeting him at the World Parliament of Religions, he actually had the teachings the Vedanta and the teachings of Vivekananda.
And this picture, which we used for the header,
Mhm.
tell us about this. It was after a 40-day fast in darkness.
Yes, yes.
And
So,
it was a retreat in Kashmir.
mhm.
Tell us about that.
I'll tell you about those two things. So I was leading a tour, by the way, with Phil Goldberg. We've done 4 tours of India. We take 25 people and tour the holy places of India. And after the last one we did in 2020, I stayed afterwards and did something called Panchakarma. So I did 28-day Ayurvedic treatment in a hospital to really to rejuvenate the body. When I came out of the 28-day retreat, COVID had broken out in Italy. Italy was the first place to close down, so I couldn't go back. Every time I made a reservation, within an hour, they would cancel the reservations. So I went back to Rishikesh, and I went to see my old Ayurvedic doctor, and he looked at my health and just checked my pulse and all those sorts of things. And he said, you know, my thesis in grad school for Ayurveda was on something called Kaya Kalpa. And it hasn't been done in India for the past 70 years. And you're healthy enough and spiritually developed enough to actually be able to do this. I said, well, what is it? He said, you go through a period of 8 months of Ayurvedic treatment, gradually weaning yourself from food, and then you enter a cave or a dark space for 40 days, and you fast in silence and solitude in darkness. So we trained for that for 8 months. And that picture that you showed there is me coming out of the 40 days. It was extraordinary. I mean, many of the things that I'd read about in the scriptures, I hadn't experienced until being isolated and fasting for 40 days. It was truly one of the most powerful experiences of my life. You know, things like having the third eye open and being able to see forms in complete darkness, being able to tune into the higher frequencies and listen to different dimensions, go to the plane where Mozart and Beethoven were able to hear classical music and download it. It was really quite extraordinary, hearing the Sanskrit sounds of the water forming words and ideas. So I could go on for days and days talking about the experience, but it was truly life transforming.
Another thing that I wanted you to mention is when the Indian government invited you to develop a curriculum for meditation. And
Mhm.
you began doing an an educational program at the request of the Indian government at Doon University.
Yes. So the initiative is called the Second Education, and the vision is that this would become part of the education system of India. So we started teaching at the universities. The first one is at Doon University. I've completed live classes there for 2 semesters, introducing the college students to meditation, to Kashmiri Shaivism, to Eastern spirituality. And the idea is that there would be an introductory course and then a full major where people could actually major in second education and then teach in the schools K through 12. We have memorandums of understanding with 10 universities right now, including the IGNOU, which is the Indira Gandhi School of Technological School. Largest online education system in the world. They have 3.5 million students learning online how to meditate, how to develop emotional intelligence. Second education is really about the inner person. First education is learning about the outer world, what you get in typical universities, reading, writing, arithmetic, biology, physics, all of that. Second education is about the inner reality of the world of thoughts, feelings, leading to the knowledge of the inner self. That's really the goal, is to teach people about the inner divinity that God dwells within you as you, and to see God in other people.
And so you have spent many years in India with your robes back on
6 years in India. Yeah.
and teaching intensives in India. And of
Mhm.
course, many Americans are going to India again to attend those. And then, surprise happens again. Donald Trump becomes president of in the United States and sends people from India home, revokes visas, this kind of thing, and the Indian government retaliates. Do you want to tell us about that?
Well, I had applied to stay permanently there. The visa I had required me to leave every 6 months for a day or two and come back. And I had applied for a particular type of visa, and the case was closed. It wasn't denied. The case was simply closed. And the immigration officer said it was in retaliation for Trump's policies towards Indians in America. What he did is he rounded up about 200 Indians in the dead of night and sent them back on a plane. And Modi said, okay, well, we're going to do the same thing. They were courteous enough to give me 30 days to get out. So I can go back, but I can only go back for 6 months at a time, which makes it a little challenging with our second education initiative. I'm having to have other teachers teach the courses, and much of it's going to be available online now. So I look at it as a redirection. So I put the word out that I was needing to leave India on my little WhatsApp group. People invited me to come tour the world. So I'm in the midst of a 22 city world tour at this time, coming to each city and giving Shaktipat intensives and spreading the word. So I guess it wasn't my destiny to spend the rest of my life in India, but half the time in India, half the time traveling the world. I'm enjoying it.
Incredible.
I get to see my family after all these years.
Where did you learn the word redirection?
At Unity Ministerial School. When I applied to become a Unity minister and I was redirected, meaning to go in a different direction, I wasn't accepted. At first, I took it as I was hurt. I was deeply hurt, but then when I saw how my life turned out, I realized it wasn't my destiny to be a Unity minister, that I was destined to go back and put the robes on and do the work that I'm doing rather than run a church.
It's incredible. And so we're back to the word destiny and back to the question, what is your destiny path? And what are you called to do? It's not about money. It's not about ambition. It's not about anything like that. It's about something that your soul knows in the very heart of your being. And you are called to be part of something greater, vaster, that is about a shift, a cosmic shift into a vastness that the world does not yet know. And so we've gone a little bit over time with you and I just want to do a brief mention of the fact that this platform is love donation based. That's a vision of Myrtle Fillmore of never charging for any of her teaching. Everything was love donation based. And when someone questioned it in the building of Unity of on the plaza, for example, they said, let us pray for more money. And she said, no, that's the wrong thing to pray for. Pray that our faith will hold out. And Unity sometimes gives a penny away as a symbol of praying that your faith will hold out. And so I invite you to donate to that kind of commitment for Called by Love Institute. And while you're there, all you need to do is click on the donate button or also, you can sign up to get our emails. And now it says join our tribe. People don't always understand what that means. And so join the tribe by signing up for our emails and finding out who's going to be speaking next. And next month, Brad Laughlin, the co-founder with Leslie Temple Thurston of Corelight, is coming back on to do part 2 and talk about his assuming the full role and responsibility of Corelight and how it's retaining the foundational and going into some things that are brand new, including some miracles of people inviting him to do some things, and in along with the invitation, funding them happening. And so Brad and I are going to be talking about miracles and manifestation, as well as I hope we have time to talk about love and doing the squares on love. And we have about 15 minutes left, and I want to make space for people to share. And the first person I want to invite to come on, because I want you to do a show of your own with me at one point, John Welshans.
Am I
Yes.
on?
Old friend.
So wonderful to be with both of you and everyone else on the call. Thanks, Marge, and thank you, Brahms. I just want to say that since we've spoken of spiritual family and connections and destiny and all kinds of interesting synchronicities, Brahms and I met at Unity of Tustin. I think it was in 2012, I believe was the first time I visited Unity of Tustin. And the first thing that struck me was all the light coming out of his head when he walked out of the building. And I thought, that is a being who has done some intense spiritual work. And he was wearing his choir robe because he sang in the choir at Unity of Tustin, and I thought it was very interesting. And I was realizing how Marge really drew together an extraordinary family at Unity of Tustin and presented extraordinary experiences. And then, of course, there was the charming fact that his spiritual name was Brahmananda and mine is Ramananda. So we were Brahms and Rams. And we just had many wonderful sharings in Tustin. And then later, Brahms, when you were living at the ashram in Portland, Oregon, we visited a number of times there. And, a very interesting shared history. Born in the same year, 1950, faced with the same issues of, needing to be in college because we didn't want to be in Vietnam. And our spiritual lives developing during that period. So just great to reconnect with you here. And thank you, Marge, for bringing us all together.
Yes. And know that I have you on my list of people to bring on for one of these calls.
Well, that will be delightful. Whenever it's convenient for you, count me in.
So we will look at that for before the end of the year.
Big hugs.
Brahms, I will have to catch up with you in person somewhere on your travels around the world. So,
Let's do it.
yeah,
Say hi to Mosey.
I will. Mosey just left to go to her office, and she was delighted to hear that you were going to be on. She sends her love.
And one of the things I want to be sure and mention is that on July 26th, you're going to do Awakening the Grace of the Kundalini through Shaktipat at Unity of Tustin. And on July 27, 26th is a Saturday, 27, you're going to be speaking, Brahms, at the Unity of Tustin service at 11 o'clock and doing a workshop in the afternoon, The Way of Peace, where you'll be focusing on the path to inner peace through meditation and other spiritual practices. And so check in at unityoftustin.org, and I'm sure there's going to be people there that are going to be as excited as I am about doing this call with you. I doubt that anyone has ever had a recorded call like this one, Brahms, David, your entire life. And oh my God, how we have impacted each other's lives is just exquisite, absolutely exquisite. How we have learned from each other, and it's become part of the way we live. And so let's go into the time, and we only have about 10 minutes maybe to do a little more sharing. If you would like to share, you can either raise your hand, uh, hold it up so we can see it, or and bring you online, or you can use the share button that's down below, or however it is on your computer. And so is there anyone that would like to come on and be in conversation with David now, aka Brahmananda? John Claude has raised his hand.
Namaste to you. Well, it's just such a delight for me because you both are instrumental in me being here at Unity and having this transformational aspect has happened in my life. And I think it was David's influence. I was Catholic as well. I was kind of raised Catholic. And so, in Catholic Church, you don't go to another church. But I heard of Unity of Tustin through somebody that came to meet me in the bar who was drinking, had this thing, and he talked about the chanting. And he said, and I said, where did you go to some Hindu church? No, it's a Christian church. And huh. So that's when I was at a low point in my life, I came to this church and I said, okay, this would be a Christian type of place. I'll go and check it out. And it's your word, Marj, that's first got me awakened. You said, I am that. And I'd like, what the hell is she talking about? I had no realization of what it is. But then you had the classes on the Wednesday, the consciousness of, I forgot the classes of consciousness, whatever it is. But we were doing that book study of Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul.
Mm.
And you guys were hosting that. And that's when I discovered the two aspects of myself, my spiritual being. And once I was woken to that and realized there was this other aspect in me that really got me charged up. And I had a direction and kind of an inclusive. And having David there, who was Catholic as well, and being comfortable in this environment allowed me to feel more comfortable. So in a sense, without you even knowing David, but that brought me into that space. And then, from then on, it's been an upward growth. And then I had the luxury of David kindly allowing to invite me when he was in Assisi to come down there and stay with him for a retreat when I was there, because I was going to be traveling around Europe. So I spent a few days there and had the luxury of him being my guide, to have the David as your guide, taking through all these places where Assisi spent, and he was able to give me some background history and all that to so be educated there. And then I always felt an affinity for David. There was just an openness, and I felt like my brother. It was that kind of a kinship. There was that, and I always kind of looked up because he was very inspirational. I kind of say I kind of liked being around him because he kind of raised the consciousness somehow. I felt, always felt better being around him. So what I had a magnificent time in assistance with him, and then we had for a beautiful dinner. He introduced me to the wines, and he taught me. He had a good time. I really had a good time. So he helped me in my holiday, having a great time, and we met other people at downtown. So I'm ever grateful for that time spending with him, and he introduced me to Advanta, and that led me on to Course of Miracles. I spent a lot of time in the Course of Miracles, really beginning to get a better understanding. So spiritually, both of you have kind of helped me in this place that I am now, which so grateful for, because I'm quite at peace with knowing who I am, which is a wonderful place to be. So I thank you both, and I thank you. Special night to you, David, and I'll be seeing you on the weekend when you're here.
Oh,
Thank you,
good.
brother.
I
Thank
look
you.
forward to that.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
And you mentioned Michael Singer and the Untethered Soul. David, you knew him.
Indeed, we were studying that book at Unity of Tustin, and was Michael Singer. And about halfway through the book, I realized that I knew him as Mickey Singer. And I've actually been to his ashram in Florida, the Temple of the Universe. So yeah, he was a disciple of Muktananda, and really took good care of Baba when he had his heart attack. He had one in Miami, and Michael took good care of him. He's written a couple really brilliant books lately.
Yeah.
So,
and I can't forget heart math. We had a lot of time spent on heart math together, and sort of kind of development consciousness. Beautiful. So I mean, that's where my background is in, kind of attributed to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Patty Higgins has raised her hand.
Patty?
I'm so excited you're going to visit us in Tustin, David, and you have totally impacted so many of us. John Claude and I and Dexter and others spent every Tuesday night with you for 5 years doing heart math. And that breathing in, breathing out, that is my meditation go-to all day long. John Claude has become our prayer chaplain director, and now he's doing the platforms organization and dear Pam Dost, you might remember her, she's one of our prayer chaplains. And a bunch of us went recently, just to show you how Catholicism and Eastern thought do bridge. Our prayer chaplains went to the Ramakrishna Museum monastery and got to meditate with all the bikers who were at their AA meeting there in their meditation room. It was delightful. And then we went on to the most incredible St. Michael's Abbey nearby in Trabuco Canyon. They have a beautiful cathedral, but more than that, they have a library with books dating back to 1493. And their former I forget what he's called. The head of the monastery is
Abbot.
Abbot, right.
No, it's one rank lower than that, but he was so hospitable to us.
And I'm so grateful you mentioned heart math, because this is an example of David and Brahmananda and willingness, because David MacArthur was on the staff. He's a Unity minister, and he was on the staff of Heart Math, a key person for about 5 years. And I invited David to come and speak at Unity in Tustin, and he did a full week intensive. And he said, how many people want to go on with this? And there were a lot of them, including you, Patty. And he said, well, the next thing we need to do is identify the person that's willing to be responsible for leading it. And guess who volunteered? David now.
And Walnut Creek still does a monthly heart math that you can connect to online. And we did a Course of Love which is the next step after Course in Miracles that John Claude and we went through that book twice. And Brahms, you had some of your friends from your ashram connect with us online. So we really are all one. It's so amazing.
Here's the bottom line. And we have about 3 minutes left. We're running out of time. Is there anyone that wants to say hi?
Kathy has her hand up, and
Oh, and
Barbara has her hand.
Barbara, we'll go
okay.
over a little bit of time.
Okay.
Kathy, let's see, I see Barbara's hand up, Barbara Greenfield.
Okay, Barbara.
Well, I just want to say first off, I mean, Marj and David, you have changed my life. When I first came to Unity of Tustin, I was spiritually bankrupt. And your teachings and the new concepts that I learned, everything about beyond has so impacted my life. And all of the times that we had our classes, I remember going there after work. I really think that going to the classes got me to the finish line and being able to retire in a way. I mean, my whole life opened up in ways that I never thought possible. And oftentimes I think of you, David, as what Marge used to say, when the monk comes back into the marketplace with gift bestowing hands. And I really think of you that way and all the gifts that you have bestowed on so many of us around the world and people that haven't even met you yet. And there's been such in the mystery and the learnings that I've gotten from the both of you. And with our wonderful community at Unity of Tustin, even though it's evolved and changed over the years, it's different now. But it continues. I mean, the legacy that you two have, and it just continues to grow and grow and grow. And I am just so grateful to the both of you. So
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, dear one. Thank you. Blessings.
And we are going to go a little bit over because I see Kathy with her hand raised and Coral with her hand raised, and I want to hear from both of you, Andrea. So Coral, you're next, and unmute.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Well, thank you so much, Marge and David, for allowing the sacred space today. I don't want to take a lot of time, but just really revisiting the East meets West classes and courses and mystical Bible and everything. And I've been to India with David and Marge. It's wonderful. I know we're going to see each other soon. I just feel the last couple hours, it's this continuance of these weaving these divine threads through existence and through my life, and they continue on. And it's really been a beautiful a space today. So thank you both. And I love you both.
Mm.
And I look forward to your visit. She's coming to visit here at Holly in October.
Love you, Coral.
Love you.
And Kathy Corner had her hand up and Andrea had her hand up.
Hey, Kathy.
I will be very, very brief, but I just had to say hello. David, is just so wonderful to see you. And of course, Marge. And when you said, they started talking about heart math, and I just had to pipe up for a half a minute here. I was in your very first class at Unity where your statement was, we're all doing this together. Who's the teacher and who's the facilitator? And I got so much out of that. That was 2010, which was a very, very pivotal year for me. And I just want you to know that was it was rooted in exactly the direction that I needed to go. I was ripe, having been with Marge for 5 or 6 years, and then with HeartMath, it was just the right tool that I needed to some life-changing events that took place as a result of that. So I wanted to thank you. And then, of course, Marge, you know, you still are the voice in my head. As you know, I've gone back to the Catholic Church. Somehow they've become more liberated. And one of the reasons that I've gone back is because they are very ecumenical. It's no longer we are the chosen ones. They are embracing worldwide, global, ecumenical teaching of Christianity and the real embodiment of one God, many paths. And that's my heart. That's my home now. And one last thing, I went with Reverend Blair and his group to Assisi, to Italy in November. And fast forward, I'm still trying to unpack that whole trip. But I know for sure that I will be returning, David. And I don't know, I'm praying about it. Maybe even a retreat this year, if not soon. So thank you both for being here. And thank you for all that you've done for me personally.
And Kathy, tell them about your Taizé service.
Well, I love the Taizé, and it's offers the Sisters of St. Joseph is where I'm affiliated now. And once a month they have it. And Elizabeth Rector, who has done through Still Point, has done Taizé once a month for years, had a conflict, and she asked me if I would facilitate in May. And I said, absolutely. And then at the end, her husband said, that was great. What about June 19th? Elizabeth's going to be out of town. Are you available? And I said, that's my birthday. I would be honored. So as fate has it, Patty Higgins and Linda Cook came to see me for Taizé on my birthday, and they each got to read. Patty read the gospel and Linda read the Psalms. So it was a wonderful, the trio of us, me, former Unity, being able to facilitate that service was, it was angelic for me. It was very heart-centered.
Or maybe it's not former, maybe it's forever. And what we're doing is going into the vaster understanding of what that means.
Yes.
And so many people asked me or said to me after I stepped off the platform in now, 2011, I think it was, and the attendance dropped significantly. And they said, where have all the people gone? And what I always said is they have gone to plant seeds about everything they learned here in new places. And you are a perfect example of that, Kathy. You've gone back to the Catholic Church and you're planting the seeds of what you've learned. And the Taizé was something we used to do once a month at Unity of Tustin. So it's so incredible. And thank you so much for being on this call. Send me a link to your Taizé service.
I will. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Marge, I'm going to be in Kansas City this weekend on a conference, and I have tried so hard to figure out a way that I could get together with you, and it's just not going to work this trip, but another time.
Another time. I would love that. So people, one of the advantages of living in Kansas City is that a lot of people come through. John Welshons is one who we worked on having him stay here overnight. We have lovely guest space and a whole lower level in our house that we've had up to 5 people at a time.
I'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
Yeah. And Andrea.
Andrea.
I love you so much. Everyone has said everything. You are the most amazing teachers in my life. Marj, you have always been there for me. So many years that we've been together. So many years. I believe I'm one of the, I will not say the oldest, the longest maybe, of being at this moment. After Arnie left, I think I'm the next one now
I
to be
think that's
there.
probably true.
So I'm holding the space, but it's different. But the love that both of you have left there is still there, and that's why I'm there. So thank you so much for your love, and I'm hoping to see David next weekend.
Well, and it's incredible. Shara, one of the ministers at Unity Now, came and spent one night with us when she was here and leaving, and it was fabulous. We took her out to dinner and took wonderful pictures. So at some point, I may actually have Shara come on one of these calls. We are
Oh,
one. That
yeah.
is so clear. And we are all planting the seeds wherever we are called to be. And Pam, are you still wanting to say hello? Can you unmute yourself? Don't know where Pam disappeared.
She's here, but I can't hear her audio.
I can't hear her audio. Oh, okay, Pam. Can you unmute yourself? Ask to unmute.
Sorry, please try again.
There you go.
There you go.
I didn't press it hard enough. Okay. Hello, everybody. And it's a delightful morning because I know all of you, and that's amazing. I've been going to Unity a long time, and I didn't realize that I have a family like David with Christian and Jewish. My mother being Jewish and my father Christian Science when he grew up. And so that's what I've been trying to work out all the time I've been going to Unity. And thank you so much for sharing everything you have. And I love you all.
You talked about your mother, and every time you mention her, I remember her as the mayor of Huntington Beach.
She was born on George Washington's birthday, so what could happen but government?
So happy birthday.
I'm born on the 26th of February, so it's close, but I'm not used. I don't like to go into the government like my mom did.
All right.
I stay at Unity, and all I have at Unity. Yeah, yeah. And if it wasn't for so many people, I can't remember to name them, but I started it in being a very depressed person, and at at a place on 4th Street in Tustin. So that's kind of been my center.
Oh, thank you, Pam.
Yeah.
And there's one other person that I'm going to ask to come on and introduce himself, because Ed Casey is my partner. We live together here at Holly. Ed, can you unmute yourself and say hello to this amazing group of people?
I think I did I?
You did.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Hi. Well, hello, folks. It's a real pleasure to see and meet all of you folks that have been part of Marge's life. And I think it's wonderful. And I really enjoy hearing from all of you and the way that you have been part of her life, the way she has been part of your life, the way she's part of my life. So, yeah, we've known one another for a very, very long time. And we've been away from one another and back together now. And we're here in Kansas City together, where we actually met in 1972. So she's been a cog in my life. I have a better life and a wonderful spiritual life. And I was raised Catholic also, all the way through high school, just like the one gentleman was speaking, David, you earlier. And grew up in St. Louis, which is a very Catholic town also. But yeah, we met in 1972. And once again, we've been cogs in one another's lives over the years. She's been away. She's the one that introduced me to Unity, and we go to the Unity Church here on the plaza, and Unity has been a breath of fresh air and given me new meaning in life. So I'm very, we're wonderful cogs in one another, and we will continue to be. Marj, love you very much, and it's just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So once again, enjoy meeting all of you, and the best of everything to everyone. I've always enjoyed these get-togethers. Marj, take it away.
How precious. Thank you, Ed. And it's wonderful to be able to introduce you to some of the people that are here.
Yeah.
And how beautiful this call has been. We've gone almost 15 minutes over, and it's been precious every single moment, hearing your voices, seeing your faces. And come back next time, the third Wednesday of every month, and come back, and you're going to love hearing part 2 of Brad Laughlin, and so many wonderful things. And thank you for all the hearts, Coral. How precious. And so we simply say, thank you, oh beloved one. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are so grateful to the all that is. And we'll see you next month. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Marj.
God, thank you, guys.
Yes.